Okay, guys, hope we're live and everybody can hear me. Let me know if there's any problems with that while I'm getting set up. Just take me a couple of seconds. Sean is in waiting. I gotta check one more thing here, and we'll be good to go in a second. Hey, can everybody hear me? Seems like the smarties of people here. All right, so Tom, can you hear me? Just checking. Oh, okay, good. Thank you. I was waiting for someone to get back. Thank you. I didn't know if just making sure, guys. All right, it's been a long day. Sean is waiting. I got to let Harry out. This is our Italian Spinoni. We'll try to get the camera on him after. He's always popular when I do. I'll have to occasionally let him in and out. And we also have George. That's our other dog. Now, today, before I bring Sean in, I just want to start quickly with some thank yous. First, people can't stop messaging me, though. First to Tom Fleming, who's kind of our station manager, and he's definitely going to be our film crew manager next week for the documentary that we're beginning. Also to Dave, who I've known for several months now, and he's become a very good friend, and he's a big part of this channel, and he did a fantastic job today filming outside the courthouse. I want to thank my doctor, Dr. Gaynor, for keeping me in the game. I want to thank my family for putting up with me. Thank you, family. I want to thank you guys for putting up with me. I want to thank the Celtics for signing Jaylen Brown today. Oh, that's an awfully big contact, fam. And last but not least, I want to thank the guy who called me a moron today in chat, because everybody appreciates a good daily dose of irony. Anyways, so hopefully by next week, me and Dave McGrath will be doing returning the Yellow Tape podcast. Only this time, instead of being on this channel, we'll eventually post the videos on the channel, but we're going to be on Sirius Radio. If not by next week, maybe by the week after. We'll be doing, I think, 2 or 3 afternoons a week. So if you guys have Sirius Radio in your car, you'll be able to listen to us. The only thing I want to add before I bring Sean in, big part of what this channel is about, monsters. They're real. And a lot of people in positions that matter don't believe they're real. And that's the kind of crimes that we're studying. Most of the crimes that go on in the world are done by what we would call criminals. They're not necessarily monsters. They may have had a bad upbringing, or they're greedy or whatever. There are people that were born monsters, and there are people that don't believe in it. People in positions of power, education, law enforcement, justice. And because of that, right now, somewhere, there are children being trafficked or in a situation of jeopardy, because now, obviously, you could never stop every one of these. You're never going to be able to protect every kid. But because there are such a large number of people that don't actually believe in monsters, a lot of those kids are in the situation they're in because of that, and it could be prevented. Now, I want to bring in Sean. This is Sean McDonough, who has been on the channel before. I talk to Sean now almost every day. We talk primarily about the Karen Reed case, but we're also talking about his own background in law enforcement. He spent his life in law enforcement. This case bothers him because he loves law enforcement, and he's very proud of his career. He's proud of his brothers and the work that they do in the field. And so it drives him crazy seeing what's going on. At the very least, we have incredibly shoddy police work going on in this Canton case, and the way the state police have handled it, the way the prosecution has handled it, at the very least. And if the defense theory is true, and Sean has some more evidence tonight that makes this defense theory stronger, it's more than just shoddy police work. There was actual corruption there was a cover-up. That may even involve things like planting evidence, which sounds crazy. That'll make this the true crime case. You always hear this, the case of the century, but this really might be the true crime case of the century in many ways, because it has everything in it. It has an innocent victim. It has someone that's falsely, if this is true, someone that's falsely charged with murder. And it has powerful people getting together to frame that innocent person, to cover up the real killers. So it has everything. So Sean is one of the good guys. It's very difficult if you're in law enforcement to speak out when the suspect or these suspects involve law enforcement people and law enforcement families. But there's more people out there like Sean. And a lot of these people are now feeding Sean information. And I hope they continue to do that. And they can step forward here and they can always feed us information. Because one thing that I can tell you, I make a lot of enemies here because I try to handle things fairly. I don't try to take one side. I try to see things from all sides. It's not both sidesism. In this case, I have serious questions. In my heart, I don't know what happened here. There are things, if you try to look at it from the side of one side or the other, there are a whole lot of things that just don't add up. So Sean is a great person to have these conversations with because he has an open mind and he goes over the evidence in a very analytical way, and we go back and forth in this stuff. So let me bring Sean in, and hopefully we won't have any technical issues. Hey, Sean, can you hear me?
I can, Kevin. Can you hear me?
Actually, I have to put on my headphones. Sean, can you hear me?
I can.
We may have to, let's see. Speakers are in.
Can you hear me?
Technical difficulties just never end. I don't know.
I have sound on my end, Kevin.
Let's try one more time because I have another. All right. For some reason, this camera's not coming in now.
Jesus. I can't hear you, Kev.
Sean, can you hear me? Sean, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Sean, can you hear me?
Yes. I can hear you.
All right, so he can hear me. Now I can't hear him. I have to switch. Okay, let's try this. Sean, can you just give me a shout out?
1, 2, 1, 2, 3. My mic's working on my end. Can you hear me?
All right. Yeah. I can, but there's a delay, I think. Just say, hey, Kevin. Let's see how long the delay is.
Hey, Kevin.
Let me just try one more thing and click over to
People in the show could hear
I
me.
have trouble logging into Chrome for some reason. Let me try it on Chrome and see if that works better. I'm
Kevin,
sorry, guys. I don't
the
really get
audience
what's
can
going
hear
on
me,
here.
Kevin.
Should be up in a minute. I know, but it's going to be hard for us to have a conversation with this delay.
Okay.
So let me try. I'm going to close the edge. I can't take it anymore. This thing sucks. All right. Can you hear me, Sean?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. That was pretty live. So let me just close everything else.
Okay.
All right, we're back. Oh my God. All right. Well, for those of you that stuck with us, thank you very much. Appreciate it. So let's get right to it, Sean. I still got a delay.
So before we start, Kevin, I wouldn't characterize this as new evidence. I would characterize it as an opinion on evidence that probably hasn't been interpreted completely. And I think that, of course, I mean, the evidence is the evidence. I can't produce evidence, but clearly that I have an opinion on some of the evidence that we talked about today. I don't know if you're able to bring those pictures up, but I don't know how you want to start this off. You want to keep it to the outline we talked about. It's up to you. Your show, whatever you want to do.
Sure. Let's keep to the outline. Sorry. I apologize. I'm still, trying to straighten out all the technical stuff, but I think we're getting
That's
there.
fine. That's fine.
So I think you wanted to start out by talking about the seizure of the SUV and what happened leading up to that. So let's start with that, Sean.
Okay. So where we left off on, was it Saturday? It was Saturday. We were on the air, right?
Yep.
So we left off basically, at this particular time, John has been taken to the hospital. Karen is now section 12. She's out of the way, so to say. The Canton police has basically cleaned up shop. They've left the scene. And now you have witnesses that are basically left alone. So, like I was telling you earlier today, everything seems to be done backwards in this investigation because basically you had 3 witnesses that should have been interviewed immediately, separated and interviewed immediately. So that didn't happen. The primary piece of evidence that wasn't seized or collected was the vehicle. We talked about it, whether the theory was it was an assault, a domestic assault. We know that if she had assaulted him outside the vehicle, and if it was a physical assault, well, then she would have brought evidence back into the car. All right. So that is a theory. They knew that the car was at One Meadows. They knew that. Then when it turned to the hit and run accident, that car was still at One Meadows. It was still in the jurisdiction of where the crime basically took place. Right, so one has to ask a question, why was it more important for the investigators to interview witnesses and talk about everything but the crime scene, the party? Why was that most important? Why wasn't collecting evidence? Because, and I alluded to it to you on Saturday, this was they had their target already. Usually it's the other way around. You gather and collect evidence first. This one here was, okay, we have a target. Whatever theory it was, there was 2 working theories, either domestic altercation or a hit and run. Either way, they should have at least gotten evidence to support going after a target. That's how it's done.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, they had the target, the interviewing witnesses, but the gold mine is sitting down at One Meadows. It's been there since whenever Jen brought the car back with Karen, sitting there all by itself. Now
So
that
all right. I'm recovering now. I have some of the photos you have. So why don't we get now? You've sent me a few photos.
Put up that first photo.
We'll put up the first photo. Okay.
Which is the one that the car is actually pulling out of the driveway.
Okay.
Now this is all open source. I haven't been given any inside evidence, but this was all open source. This came off the video that was taken from Court TV, the ring camera video of Karen backing out, striking John's vehicle, and as she's pulling out, she applies the brake lights.
Okay, hold on one second. Let's see, that was 1794.
Now it's pretty grainy because, okay, there you go. Okay, that's about 5:05 in the morning. She's leaving her home, John's house, whatever, how you want to say it. She's already hit the vehicle, okay, and she's at the end of her driveway and she's going to make a left. She has the brake lights on. If you just keep that picture right there. So you go to what the report was when Proctor wrote his report when he got to the vehicle in Dighton. Mm-hmm. His words were that the right side of the taillight was shattered. Okay? And there was a chunk of red plastic missing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did a little digging. I'm not I'm not a car guy, but I know that the light bulbs are clear. They're clear bulbs. They're like any light bulb. They're clear. It's the lens. It's the lens that changes the color, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that chunk, okay, that he describes at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when he sees the vehicle for the first time, which is extraordinary. I'll just leave it like that. His words: shattered and a chunk missing.
Yep. Let me just
everyone should direct their attention to the left side of that vehicle.
right. So let me just interrupt for a moment here, just in case people that are checking in that aren't really familiar with this aspect of the case.
Okay.
So Karen Reed, many people are familiar, but Karen Reed is accused. She's being charged with second-degree murder. She dropped off her boyfriend, who's a Boston cop, at a party, at an after-hours party. She dropped him off around 12:30. The prosecution is saying that she slammed into him in reverse, either accidentally or whatever. And part of the evidence is that they later found a broken taillight. Now, this picture here is from the Ring doorbell on the garage of where Karen lived with John O'Keefe. When John didn't come home and she spent several hours calling him and didn't hear back, she got in her car and backed out. And if we show you, I don't think I have the full video here, but if you could see the full video, you'd see she backed out, hitting that same taillight that she's accused of using to hit on John. So that's either an incredible coincidence or she was actually scheming. Some people might think that. It seems kind of hard to believe for me. Or maybe this is where the actual damage was done on the taillight. And so she backs out, and then she's coming forward, and that's when we pick up the taillight right here. Now, a friend of the channel, Dave Jenkins, who also is former federal law enforcement, he just coincidentally had told me a few months ago about a trick that he used to use when they were tailing people. So what they used to do is they take it. So let's say they're tailing someone and the people are in the house and they know they're going to come out and they're going to follow the car, but they're afraid the car might give them a slip accidentally. So what they would do is take a screwdriver and poke it into the taillight. Because it only takes a small hole, the light that comes out is actually white. So if that car is far ahead of you on the highway, you'll see that taillight will stand out at night because it's white light coming through the small hole in the red glass. So that kind of supports what you're saying here, I think, right, Sean? So
well, yeah,
if there was a huge break in this bulb here, it would be more visible. But we see pretty much mostly red light there, right?
Exactly. And if you look, okay, so you look at the left side of the vehicle.
Yeah.
It's almost a mirror image of the right side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, okay. It's not the clearest, but I can tell you right now, if you look at the headlights, pretty bright in front, right?
Yeah.
If there was so I'm here reading affidavits, excuse me. And when I see him write, the vehicle, the side taillight was shattered, right? The right rear taillight was shattered.
Yeah.
And a chunk of plastic was missing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, right off the bat, to me, that's a red bell. That's a red flag. Just remember now, that report is being written after the end of the night. It's not contemporaneous.
Right. Yeah.
It might take some notes down.
Yeah.
So I don't have the actual vehicle that's on the tow truck at Dighton.
Yeah.
But the tow truck driver emphatically says because of lawsuits and everything else, they're very particular. And when they put the vehicle onto the back of their towing facility, whatever, they check the vehicle. Yeah. And that tow truck driver said if I saw damage, I would have not duty bound. I would have had to cover myself and take a photo. Okay. Yeah. So I'm reading this affidavit. I'm reading the reports, chunks. I'm thinking chunks. Everyone before this was saying shards, like sprinkles, like little pieces of shard, like glass, right?
Right. Something that's hard to find, maybe. In
right.
Theory. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So now the Today Show, right? Yeah. For the first time now that I saw, shows this incredible chunk
Okay, let's
of
go to
red
that.
plastic
Yeah.
sitting on top of a snowbank.
Let's go to that
And I said to
picture.
myself, does everyone want to show that? Right.
Yeah. So that one's this one. Okay.
All right.
Hopefully you can make that bigger on your screen, guys. But again, just to set this up, so Karen, you see from the picture there, that's in her driveway, her leaving at 5 a.m. So then she drives to Jen McCabe's house, and then they take another vehicle to where they find John on the lawn. The Canton police come over, the first responders, and after they take John to the hospital, it becomes a crime scene. And the Canton police spent, I'm not sure if you know, I mean, how many hours is it, Sean, did they spend on that?
You figure they started, after all the commotion, John's left. You figure they probably started maybe 5:45 in the morning.
Okay.
By the time they got they didn't really separate any witnesses.
Yeah.
They had people. Anyways, Karen was driven away from the scene by Kerry Roberts.
Yeah.
Jen McCabe goes into the house with Brian Albert. I believe there's 2 cops in the house at that time, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about that right now.
Right. Right.
The Canton police initiated a search. Excuse me. So during the search, because of the snow, there wasn't much snow. They figured, okay, let's get these leaf blowers. I don't know if there's 1 or 2. Let's say 1.
Yeah.
And I believe the purpose, and you brought a good point up. I mean, I never thought of that. Maybe the leaf blower was utilized to, say, melt the snow. I just figured.
Right. So you can, instead of shoveling, you can just kind of melt it and find little pieces of glass or evidence or whatever. Yeah.
Right. So my thought was, okay, since it hadn't really snowed that much at that time, and it may be powdery or something. So they start blowing in the area to clear the snow.
Yeah.
All right. Now,
and just we also should tell people the snow situation. So it had been snowing all night the evening before, but it was just really snowing lightly. So at the original accident scene, I believe it was still maybe snowing lightly, and there was only probably 1 or 2 inches of snow there. That's for the original example, plus whatever snow might have been. It's New England, it's January. There was probably some older snow in the area. But just as far as the fresh falling snow, I think there was only 1 or 2 inches. And the Canton police did not find any taillight glass. Now, then the state police came in and took over the investigation, and they started searching, I think, 5 o'clock at night, right?
About 1:45.
Yeah. So, and
Well,
that, and then
sorry,
that's
about quarters. I think it was 5:45.
5:45. Okay.
Yeah.
And then that's when
Around
this
that
was
time.
found here.
Yeah. So back up just a minute.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
The
Yeah.
strangest thing about this whole thing is that, which is incredible, they were able to, the Canton Police Department, those guys on the scene, were able to find clear glass,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay? And of course, the blood droplets, okay, that didn't justify, there wasn't enough blood to justify the gash that John had on his head. Okay?
They found
So
the
we had
cocktail glass, right? Or did they find it?
some type of glass that was broken, okay?
Okay. Yeah.
All right, so think about this. You have white snow, right? All right, see that piece of that chunk of red plastic. Well, there was 2 other pieces of red plastic, all right?
Yeah.
That's the only photo that I was able to see from the Dateline segment from Today's Show the other day. There's, in the report, there are 2 pieces found that day that are red chunks, okay? And then they found another piece of white lens that went with the other part of the taillight, okay? So, but then days later, they found the chief of the Canton Police Department finds another piece of red plastic, okay? So if you go back to the picture of Karen's vehicle driving out of her driveway, I defy anyone to look at the right side of that car,
Yeah.
and think about just that one chunk you see,
Right.
and try to put it up against any part of that right side of that car. And now you know that was actually 3 pieces, 3 chunks, their words, not mine.
Yeah.
Chunks found.
Yeah.
from that taillight. You had to be in a gaping hole.
And keeping in mind
now you know, and
the
I
screwdriver
know,
trick. So I
right?
mean,
Yeah, you now an associate of mine, very astute associate,
yeah,
was able to find a video on YouTube of a vehicle driving, an SUV driving,
mhm,
with the back taillight broken,
yeah,
and it's nighttime, and
yeah,
that vehicle, the brightness of that vehicle is incredible.
yeah,
All right, so like I said, that's why that car sat in that driveway, all right, from about, I guess when Jen drove Karen back, from about 5:35, 5:40, it was
mhm,
there, okay? It was there all the whole time that either the Canton police, right, were trying to come up with a theory, and then when it got handed over, I don't know the time, someone said 6:38, 6:40
yeah,
at some point,
mhm,
but so then the state police, by Proctor's own report, his first official act is interviewing Jen McCabe at 11:15, 11:30. 4 hours passed where that car was sitting by itself. No matter what theory they thought it was, that car should have been seized. Should have been confiscated as evidence, no matter what.
Can we show the other picture, or is that something you're still not comfortable with?
Can't show it.
Okay, all
Sorry.
right. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
but,
So, well, why don't you
you
describe?
know,
Can you describe it?
okay, you know and I know. Okay, so the other picture basically shows a gaping hole at that taillight. Gaping. And I'm looking at that picture right now. It just doesn't support.
There's almost
doesn't-
nothing left of the red part of it's only a tiny little piece that's
Jagged
left
edge, a
of
jagged
yeah,
edge.
like, and it's on the corner.
Right.
So the red part of it, that's the entire rear part of the assembly is missing. The entire thing is missing.
It's missing. Okay, it's
Yeah.
missing.
Yeah.
And then if you want to go back to the physics, right?
Yeah.
My the esteemed associate also was able to find a vehicle exactly like Karen's vehicle.
Yeah.
She looked at it. She saw how it was. She felt how hard that taillight was. Carbon copy, same vehicle.
hmm
Felt how hard that taillight was and said, there's no way a 6,000-pound car hitting a 215-pound guy could crack and basically disintegrate, because he would have to have been catapulted so far
Yeah.
from the scene.
There's actually even a big crack going, looks like about 6 inches or maybe even 8 inches up above the light,
Exactly.
where the the
Yeah.
frame of the car was cracked.
Yeah. This is why you get evidence immediately.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I said in one of my posts, the lesson learned by leaving a crime scene unattended, knowing if you're going to ever go back to it, that you should have really just had a police officer there or a trooper there to basically maintain the crime scene. Because somebody came back, right, to help the cause. That's
Right,
the only
right.
conclusion I can come up with. You can't fault the Canton cops. They did a search in favorable conditions.
So let's go back a little bit, just because even I can't even remember the exact timeline. So Karen leaves at 5, okay? And in fact, Lally made a point of talking about this. He seems to be suspicious of this gap where she drove to go to Jen McCabe's, but took more time to get there than one would expect. Apparently, it seems to me that she was just driving around looking for John. She drove to a couple. I don't know what's so suspicious about it, but Lally's making a big point about this. So she drives to McCabe's, right? And then where do they go from there?
Well, I mean,
who's driving?
basically what I believe she said, that she went and retraced back from the bars where they came from. She went from, so she's at Meadows. She goes down the road and makes a left and goes downtown. All right,
And that's by
her
herself,
saying.
or that's after
She's by herself.
Okay,
She's by
yeah,
herself.
Right.
At some point, she gets back to McCabe's place.
Yep.
Now, McCabe jumps in the car and she drives.
She
McCabe
drives her own car or drives?
No,
drives
she
Karen's
gets
car?
into she gets into Karen's car,
Okay, yeah.
and she's the driver now.
Yeah.
And I guess the plan was Kerry Roberts was going to meet them back at One Meadows.
At John's
So
house.
right. They go all the way back to John's house.
Yeah.
All right. I'm basically on the other side of town. Jen lives down by my old house.
So that's
has to
where
go
the
up.
SUV, so that's where Karen's SUV goes next. It's driven to John's house and it's left there. And then Kerry Roberts takes Karen and Jen
Right.
out to look for John, and that's where they find
Right.
him.
So Kerry's driving, Jen's in the front seat, Karen's in the back seat.
Yeah.
They drive, I guess, right to 34 Fairview.
Yeah.
And that's when, by the reports, Karen immediately sees John
Yeah.
on the side of the road.
So I want to stay focused just on the SUV for now.
Okay.
So the SUV, so at that point, what happens to Karen? Where does she go? And when does she next have access to the SUV?
All right. So, with all the commotion on the scene and the
Yeah.
fact that for whatever reason, these cops forgot the procedures of what you do with witnesses because they forgot it. They forgot the fact that they should probably have asked a consent search for the house since they were already in the house, but they forgot to. All right. So at some point, one of the detectives, one of the police officers says, "Hey, Kerry, why don't you take Karen back to her home? Calm her down. I don't know, change clothes." I'm not sure what was said, but Kerry then did take Karen away from the scene.
So how did she get to the hospital? Because she had a blood test at like 8:15. Or
yeah.
something like
So
that.
so here's the thing. Again, Karen's away. She's the prime suspect at this time.
Yeah.
She's the only one that said, "Could I have maybe hit him?"
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There's something. They're looking at it as a domestic assault. They have blood. They have glass. Okay. There's confusion. There's utterances being made by Karen, which I believe is normal. She's
Sure.
hysterical.
Yeah.
I mean, she's hysterical.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
She made some utterances. Okay. But they get her off the scene. Why would a police officer, a trained police officer, allow, even if she wasn't a prime suspect, if she's a witness?
I know but let's just stay focused on the SUV
fine.
just
Okay,
for
so
now.
she leaves.
We're trying to,
She leaves.
because what we're trying to figure out, Sean, is if there's any other plausible way that glass could have come off, or if there is some foul play, who would have had access to it and when.
Okay.
So Karen is taken back to John's
She's traveling
by
back
Kerry.
to One
Okay. Yep.
Meadows. Kerry's driving.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure if she actually got into the house or not, but
Okay.
at some point, they must have deputized Jen McCabe as a police officer because she makes the phone call to either Kerry or Karen, and they say, "Hey, Karen, you have to come back." So they turn around. The car's still there. No one else at the house. I believe either the niece is still there. She's still at the house. All right.
Right. Yeah.
She can't drive.
Nephew too. Yeah. The nephew's younger. Yeah.
Yeah. So they come back, and it's at that point they decide to section Karen.
So she actually left this. That's really unusual. So they was so confusing that they let her leave the scene to go collect herself or something, and then called her back. And that's when they took her. And that's when they took her to the hospital and checked her blood. That's amazing.
No, they took her to the hospital because they thought she was some kind of
breakdown.
report of suicidal or whatever. But this is what I don't get. If that was the reason they called her back because they thought she was suicidal, what reasonable police officer say, "Okay, Karen, you're suicidal. Come on back and drive back with us. Drive back with Kerry." Why not say, "Hey, by the way, Karen, stay right there. We'll come up and pick you up."
Right.
Right. Oh, and by the way, we'll check your car out.
Okay, so at that time when she goes to the hospital, she's at the hospital and the SUV is parked. Do we know where at the house? Was it in the driveway, in the garage?
I don't know. I don't think it was said. I don't think it was mentioned because by the time the cops did go there, she's gone. The car's gone.
Yeah.
This is how crazy it is.
So she got released. Do we know when she got released and how she got
sometime
home?
around 12:15, maybe 12:30.
So she was in for several hours, and then how did she get back to John's? Do we know? Or
I believe maybe her father might have picked her up. I believe.
Okay.
All right.
So her father picked her up, and then they took the vehicle back to Dighton.
They
from
drive
there.
back to One Meadows.
Yeah.
Now, by this time, the O'Keefe family members are there. They have the poor nieces there.
Yeah.
And I don't know the nephews, but the O'Keefe family, I guess, was called by Jen or somebody, right?
Yeah.
You know, she's the shot caller that day. She's calling all the shots, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So anyways, Karen gets back there. Evidently, his fingers being pointed. It's tense. And basically, she gets in the car. Father follows her back, I guess. And they go back to Dighton.
Yeah.
I don't know. So say it's 1 o'clock. They're back there by 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think Officer Proctor actually at Turtle Boy did a great job. I think he's the one that actually found this evidence, if I'm not mistaken. But he found out that Proctor initially tried to call in a tow pretty early, I think around 1:30 or something like that. Even though the tow didn't come till later.
Clearly a phone call made
Yeah.
earlier than I believe that was reported.
Right.
Because
It wasn't in his report. Exactly. I think Turtle Boy found it on the police log.
Yeah, there was a log
Yeah.
not only from the Dighton police, right? I believe the Dighton police made the phone call.
Yeah.
But it's also backed up by the tow driver,
Right.
tow car driver, right?
Right. Right.
Okay. So that was a very, I mean, this was a part where both the prosecution and the defense really, I don't better word, got screwed by incompetent police work.
Right.
They really did.
Right.
Because let's face it, if that car right there, that car was taken control of, whenever that first theory, let's face it, good cops know you have a fight with someone and it's violent. You're looking at a guy who's beat up badly.
Yeah.
Blood should have been everywhere, but he's cut up. His eyes are swollen shut, black, blood everywhere in his mouth. He's got a cut, laceration in the bridge of his nose. Okay.
Yeah.
They're going, this is a domestic. Well, guess what? If she did it, she didn't do it inside the car. She did it outside because the glass is out there. Right?
Yeah.
Let's get the car. Let's get the car. Let's bring her back. Okay, Karen, let's go. Let's go to your house like they did with Jen.
Yeah.
Jen, let's get in Brian's house. We'll talk to you. No, how about this? Let's go. Let's split up the team. Let's take Karen back. Let's sit down in your living room and let's get the car.
Yeah.
Let's get your statement.
Yeah. So let's again, there's so many aspects of this case. So we really want to just try to nail down comprehensively one at a time. And if we get through the taillight, we'll go on to something. Because we do have some other things that you've uncovered this week, and I'm not sure which ones. You'll have to decide which ones you want to talk about or which you want to say. But let's just finish up on the glass.
Sure.
When you look at that picture, and I'm sorry, somebody mentioned that that's not full. You can't really tell from that picture. I'm sorry, I can't make it too much bigger than that.
They can go to my Facebook picture, and they can go to one of the Justice for John or Canton Confidential. They can pick that. That picture's all over the place.
Okay.
They can make the thing bigger, as big as they want.
Yeah, yeah. And I apologize for that again. I'm still used to using the share screen for this thing, and you see me playing around. I'm trying to make it bigger, but when you look at a full screen, again, I really can't even tell which side is broken. Now, I'm not disputing that it's broken. I mean, everybody seems to agree that one of these that the taillight is broken, but when I'm looking at it, I can barely tell,
right?
If at all. I mean,
one thing you have to remember before we get off this subject at this point. Allegedly, Jen said, this is Jen, because Karen has never admitted that she said this.
Yeah.
Jen said that Karen said to her, this is where the crack come in, that my taillight's cracked.
Yeah.
All right, now that makes sense, right? Because she backed into a vehicle, right? So 6,000 pounds going back. Say the Chevy Traverse is 4,000 pounds, right?
Yeah.
You got force going against something stable. That Traverse rocked, okay?
Yeah.
There had to be some kind of damage on that car.
Yeah.
You rock a car like that with 6,000 pounds going into you, I don't care what speed it is.
Yeah. You're
going to have some kind of blemish. Let's call it a blemish.
Yeah.
And maybe the corner, in fact, did crack. But here's the thing. Why wasn't it looked at when Jen jumped in the car? Or when Jen dropped Karen off? I mean, when they brought back and got into Kerry's car. She
Well,
only
the thing is,
said she said it.
and the pictures don't lie though. So we're looking here at this picture here, and I'm sorry I can't make it bigger, but you can see there's minimal damage done to the taillight.
Well, we know on the left
And-
side there's no damage to the left. We know
Yeah,
that, right?
Right. And,
The
and
left looks like the right
Yeah.
to me.
exactly. So I'm not even, there's minimal damage. Okay. There's neither side, the
There's not a
prosecution,
gaping hole.
there's not a gaping hole. Both sides agree that the tail light is damaged by this time. In fact, they both agree that when she drives by the library about 5 minutes after this picture, that the damage is visible on the tail light. But clearly you can see here, whatever damage is done is minimal. But yet when you look at that piece that was found on the ground, that's a huge chunk. And then when you look at the photo that Dave sent me, but I'm sorry we can't send it to you guys. Maybe you can find it somewhere else. Pretty much the whole red outer piece is missing. And that's not the damage that we're seeing here. So that leaves a certain possibilities. Is it possible that is more, that thing was hanging on there for dear life, and later on through traveling and tows, it fell off? I don't know. Or is it possible?
Yeah, fell off. That's right. Let's say it fell off on 24 or fell off on 138. It didn't fall off because the Canton cops did a great search.
Yeah.
I'm going to give them an attaboy for that search.
Yeah.
Because guess what else they missed? They got the clear glass, but they missed the black sneaker.
Yeah. Well, because the glass, which is another thing from that photo that's unusual too, is that glass. Now we don't know the circumstances of how that search was being conducted, but it seems to be sitting. Now I'm not sure, but I think maybe another 12 inches of snow that day.
That's right.
So in between the time of that initial search when they didn't turn up and the time when when they found it sometime around 6 o'clock, there was another 12 inches of snow. So unless they were using something similar, and we didn't see that they were, like a leaf blower, and they were melting the snow, and they found it and they melted all around it and took the picture.
Put in the report. At least the Canton cops put it in their report.
It's not in the report, exactly. So more shoddy work, or someone just dropped that right on top of the snow there. So I think that's what the implication is.
A lot of people had an opportunity to help the cause.
Yeah.
When you have an unsecure crime scene. Now, here's the thing. I don't even know if that's their search team, right? I don't even know if they even realized that the Canton police did an initial search at 6:30 in the morning. How about that?
They must know.
I would hope. But I mean, come on. These guys are professionals.
Yeah.
These guys, that's all they do. They're a trained unit.
Yeah.
For search. It's a blizzard. I don't know if it was still snowing at the time they got called out.
Yeah.
But they're gonna say, Jesus Christ, we gotta go look for some stupid accident scene now.
Right.
And they get there. They said, oh, kind of like our president. Well, son of a bitch. There it is. No heavy lifting.
Yeah,
Son of a bitch.
So I mean, just I guess the last thing I could even say on the glass, we should always ask this question, because I always want to try to be fair. Is there any conceivable thing that you can think of? Sorry, I'm getting attacked by mosquitoes. Is there anything you can think of? Any possible innocent explanation for how that glass ended up going from like this, what we see in this picture, where there's minimal damage, to where it's shredded apart? Is there any possible innocent or even screw up explanation, but so something that's not corrupt but accidental? Can you think of anything, or is it even possible?
You said the word innocent. No, I cannot think of an innocent explanation why at 5 o'clock in the morning that car looks pretty well intact.
Yeah.
And you saw the picture I sent you.
Yeah.
There's a gaping hole in that taillight.
Okay.
That means there should have been a gaping bright white light at that hour of the morning at that time.
Yeah. All right. So I want to move on from the glass, and I want to bring Dave on at 8:30.
Sure.
Because we expected to have more time, but we're gonna have to come back, tomorrow, a couple nights.
Let's just go 2 seconds before we do this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
All right. So the conflicted Canton Police Department, they washed their hands of it, right? Because they left the crime scene unattended, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why wasn't there a seamless handoff? Okay, fine. This is important because this is what you're talking about, the innocent explanation, why there isn't.
Yeah.
All right, so say let's give them a pass. They forgot the process of how to interview people and collect evidence. They reversed it. All right, fine. If Canton is conflicted, why didn't they take the car in Dighton to Middleborough, which was the closest barracks?
Yeah.
The state police owns this case now. They
Right.
own it.
Right. Right.
Why
Yeah,
are you going 45 miles back, passing barracks along the way to
Right.
get to Canton?
Okay.
Well, 1 second.
Yeah.
What did Canton possess that the professional state police of Massachusetts didn't? What expertise did the Canton cops possess that it had to be brought back to Canton, even though they didn't want any part of it?
Yeah.
That's a question I need answered.
Yeah. I don't know the answer.
I got the answer. I got the answer. You want to hear it?
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, they had a Canton police officer call to the scene to take the light out in the garage.
Yeah.
He owns a body shop. He's an active cop, but he owns a body shop. He admitted to that.
So the purpose was to collect evidence, or what was the purpose that he was?
I don't know why. You have a vehicle. According to Proctor, it's shattered and chunks are missing. Why are you taking it out? That's the vehicle. That's the evidence. Photograph it, tag it, secure it.
Is that a possible explanation for the picture that you didn't want us to show? Is it possible that that's after he removed that, maybe to try to match glass at the scene?
That picture is intact, because the picture that I have, it's intact. That light is still on, and that's how that light is. But why take the light? Why take it off?
I don't know. The only reason I came up with quickly off the top of my head is that they're trying to match it to the glass scene. That seems like
maybe.
That's not a good explanation, but
right.
It's the only thing that comes into my head.
So when someone touches a piece of evidence, right?
Yeah.
You get put on a chain of custody report. You should also note in your police reports that someone removed the light.
Right.
And that someone should be identified.
Okay.
That officer was never identified.
We really have to move on.
Okay,
I'm
no
sorry,
problem.
brother.
You got it.
All
right.
So this is kind of, I'm not sure where you're going to go with this. I don't know if you want to tell me if you want to share with the audience the same degree that what you told me on the phone. But I'm really interested in what you might have to say that goes towards the overall motive for the crime if it was a conspiracy. So be careful and decide what you want to say, and we trust you, but it's your life. So go ahead. Why do you think John? All right. So let me set it up a little further for you. The defense lawyers yesterday made clear that the new theory now is that John did not go there because he wanted to party. He was going into the house expecting that there was going to be some kind of conflict, or maybe he was going to resolve it. I don't know, but there was something.
I think they said he went into a tense environment.
He went into a tense environment. So the theory is that there was something going on in that house. This was more, all right. So unless he didn't know,
the interpretation is that now the defense knows at this stage, they know who was at that house.
So why do you think it was tense? What do you think they're talking about? Or what have you found out about this?
Okay, so on Sunday, there was a photograph. I think you have the photograph provided that was never really exploited. Okay. And in that photograph, there's a police officer from Canton. At the time of the photograph, I think he was had been removed from the police department.
Yeah.
He was a pill addict. He was a working cop. He was addicted to pain pills. All right.
Okay.
It's a tragedy. It is. So there was all kinds of talk about how Colin Albert, who lived 2 doors down from John, basically he was a knucklehead. He was a kid. He would mess with John. All right. John was a clean freak. He liked his lawn nice and neat. The kid would trounce through his lawn to cut through, like kids do.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Instead of taking the street, he did the cut through to get to the other side of Chapman, not Chapman, whatever the street was. Anyways,
yeah.
But to me, I don't believe that's motive. I don't think you got a kid, he threw, I don't know, when John was on vacation, flipping the bird on his finger, on his ring camera, beer bottles. Okay,
So have you
fine.
come up with something else that could be a motive there?
Yeah. So John made a phone. John saw this kid sometime after all this other stuff doing hand-to-hand deals on the street. A lot of traffic going back and up. I know this because I was told by a Canton police officer.
So what do you mean by hand-to-hand deals? I'm
Okay,
not
so
trying to make,
John's a trained police officer,
Yeah.
right? You see a bunch of cars coming up, kid comes out, puts his hand in, there's an exchange, hand to hand.
okay.
I give you something, you give me something. It's a hand to hand, right?
Yeah.
He calls the Canton police, Pleasant Street, that's right, Pleasant Street. Calls the Canton police and he complains. Tells the person on the other end of the phone, answer the call. So I got this kid, Colin Albert, he's dealing drugs. Okay.
Mhm.
And I live at such and such an address. Now, I don't believe John, if he knew the structure of what was going on at the Canton police, that Brian Albert, Kevin Albert, the Alberts were in this town the way they were. So anyways, he makes the phone call. The guy that takes the call said, Jesus Christ, got a call from a Boston cop. He's complaining about this kid, Colin Albert, selling drugs. At the perfect moment, Kevin Albert is sitting right there, standing right there. A police officer told me he saw this. Kevin Albert goes, I'll take care of it. Okay.
So John just called us into 911, or did he call? Did he have another?
I think he called the non-emergency. I mean, he's not
Okay.
gonna. It's not an emergency. He's just
Right.
calling at that time as a concerned citizen.
And he didn't have someone there that he could ask for, or he just, I don't know how it would be handled by a
Just
cop.
think about it. John was a recent resident of Canton. He actually moved into a home
Yeah.
where his, God forgive, his sister and brother-in-law
Yeah.
had died, and now he's taking care of the kids. So he really didn't. He's a Braintree guy,
Yeah.
right? He didn't know anything about Canton.
Right. Right.
If he knew Kevin Albert was at the police station as a cop,
Yeah.
I highly doubt he would call
Right.
the Lion's Den. Didn't make sense.
And when he called in, he did identify himself as a Boston,
Boston
cop that was
police officer,
calling
yeah.
in.
I live at One Meadows.
Yeah.
I got a kid doors down selling drugs. Okay.
So it's a small station, and Kevin Albert, which is Brian Albert's brother, so which is this kid's uncle, Colin
That's
Albert's
correct.
uncle.
Right.
And he happens. It's a small station, and he happens to overhear it.
That's right. He said, I'll take care of it. He takes the information. The next step is supposition, because I don't believe any investigation was done because there would be a report made.
Right.
But what if Kevin went to Brian and said, we got to do something here. I mean, Colin's out of control.
Right.
I believe Kevin might have said something. Hey, listen, we gotta reel this kid in.
Yeah.
He's, what are you talking about? Well, you got a Boston cop down the street saying Colin's dealing drugs. Brian probably didn't like that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a better theory than the kid throwing beer bottles or trouncing on his beautiful, immaculate lawn.
Yeah.
That's more of a theory than anything else. Needless to say, Colin was at that house that night. It's probably rubbing him the wrong way. He sees John by accident. Colin didn't know John would be there. John didn't know Colin would be there.
So now let's backtrack a little bit. You were talking about a cop that you mentioned is also maybe involved with, he's still a cop in Canton?
No. He was, he was like, this is from the picture. So in that picture, there's several guys with Brian. It turns out they're all in the war together. It's a war picture. They're at a bar. I believe it's at Kelleher's.
Yeah.
They got a state trooper, Timmy Walsh, off the job. OUI, beating up cops, right? Mm-hmm. You got the other end, you have, his name is Rob Gooley, right? Mm-hmm. He was addicted to drugs, right? I had a guy call me up and said, I bought off that cop. I bought off him, right? He would leave drugs over at some gym by a Stairmaster. That's why they did the drops. Crazy stuff.
So what was his connection to this case? Was he one of the cops on
the scene?
There
was a picture of Colin. There was this picture floating around for the past 4 months of Colin Albert and some guy. He was some guy. No one had him really identified.
Yeah.
This picture comes out, and all of a sudden, this is the guy. And they're sitting together with the famous Albert salute, the fists.
Mm-hmm.
So
I thought it was the finger.
finger, fist, whatever,
Yeah,
bang,
yeah,
bang,
yeah.
You, whatever you want to call it. But this picture, clearly, so you have, is Colin supplying him or is Gooley supplying Colin?
So there's a network. It's not just like one kid or one person doing something. There's a little bit of a
You're
network.
a uniformed police officer, right?
Yeah.
Where do you get your stuff from?
No, but then once you imply there's a network, that means there's a group that's protecting each other. Let me
There's
just
a connection.
let me just interrupt just real quick here. I want to bring Dave in. We're going to continue though right as I bring Dave in, and then we'll stop
Sure.
maybe after 10, 15 minutes and let
Sure.
Dave talk about what he saw down there today. We're definitely going to come back on this. So just sometimes you don't have the time that you hope to have, and it's obviously been a busy day. So hey, Dave, let's see if we can get you in there. Dave, can you hear me? Dave, you there?
Evening, Kev. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're in a very shadowy place. Oh, that's good. We can see you
Hey.
now. We're good. We're good.
How
We're
you
good.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, Sean. How are you, man?
Great job today, by the way.
Thanks, brother.
Both you guys, great job.
We got to
Great
get him
job.
some better equipment somehow, so we don't have the feedback issue.
Well, I don't think you get away from it today. Unfortunately, with the weather and the amount of with the amount of police vehicles in the area, megaphones, it's just overwhelming. So, interesting discussion though, guys. Been listening for the past hour. Very interesting.
Was any of that new to you or a little surprising to you at all? Or?
No, I've we've talked about this before. I've heard the drug dealing theory. I heard that. I think I mentioned it to you a couple of weeks ago. So it's something that's been talked about in circles. It's a plausible theory as any. And I know that this police officer, I think you mentioned his name was Uli, Sean.
That's correct.
I believe he was also the school resource officer, I was told, at Canton High School at one time.
He was.
So,
He was.
So if we're talking about the same guy, it seems like we are. So again, all I have is, I'm certainly not as connected as you are, Sean, just by the fact that, you got a couple more laps around the sun than I do. But I do hear some off the record chat when I try to bring up the case to as many people I run into at work and wherever else. And it always seems to come back to the fact that, this young kid, 18-year-old kid who's kind of a dingbat, behaving like most 18-year-old kids do. And Jimmy O'Keefe might have stumbled upon him doing some stuff that he shouldn't have been doing, blew the whistle on it. And that's really where the conflict comes from. So, a lot of
It's a lot more
there.
plausible than a kid, giving the finger when John is on vacation or trancing through his lawn.
Yeah,
I always complain about that.
I always
he never
had trouble with
complained
that.
about that, right?
I always had trouble with that theory that there was friction in the neighborhood because of some guy leaving cans on the lawn or something like that. That didn't seem like a motive, but this does seem like much more of a motive. Now, I don't know how grounded it is. I'm always careful myself, but I mean, it definitely, Sean has had some names and some good sources on this. I don't know. Is there anything else you want to add on that particular line, Sean?
No, like I said, it's well known in the police station circles, right? That call came in, and then Kevin Albert took the information and volunteered to handle it. Now, I don't know what his position was at the time. Was he a patrolman? I don't even know when the call came in. I don't know if there's a record there. I don't know if anyone could FOIA Canton Police and say, was there a complaint made?
Sure.
Yes.
It's a funny thing, Sean. You had a really interesting point to me a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about the possibility of the federal grand jury. Right. And what you mentioned was it's possible. You just kind of threw it off as a side comment, but it was possible that there's a federal grand jury, but was already seated, and it's not necessarily directly connected to this crime. Although the crime or things related to this investigation into the John O'Keefe murder may have been added to it later or absorbed into it, and that makes a lot of sense to me. And now, if you tie that together with if you have the situation you're talking about here with a cop that might be dealing drugs and a cop's son, could have been a grand jury
Well,
investigating that? Is that a
no,
plausible
I don't
theory?
think it would be that. The reason I said that is that obviously it came out by one of the attorneys that told Aiden Carney that there was a grand jury. Why he did that? Why he basically figured his client. But here's the thing. They don't, the FBI or the U.S. Attorney's Office is not going to investigate a state case for a hit and run accident.
No.
No.
Right.
So what was going on before that? You had the Stoughton case with this, whatever happened in Stoughton. There's a lot of different things that could be happening, right?
Mhm. Right.
Usually the FBI in something like that is going on a public corruption investigation.
Mhm.
I know they don't investigate hit and runs. I mean,
Well,
they could.
Drug dealing inside a local police
They'd
headquarters.
call the DEA. I mean, let's face it. One of the lieutenants was a task force officer for DEA.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe. I don't believe they could have. That's a possibility. They could. They
Yeah.
could have already been on. They could have already been on a public corruption case involving cops dealing drugs.
Right.
That's a possibility.
And you're right. They wouldn't do it if it was just a low level. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say low level cop who was just dealing some drugs. They're not going to, the FBI is not.
Yeah, he's
But
more
if it
than
was
that.
something a little bit wider than that,
That's
or,
true. I mean, I don't know what I really don't. I don't have enough mental capacity to take on this Birchmore Stoughton case. I can't. But I don't know what was going on. Maybe there's a connection. Maybe there was something already going on with public corruption. They had problems with the chief on another incident in Stoughton. Who knows what they were doing? But I don't think they just started a grand jury because they want to reinvestigate a hit and run accident.
Oh, nobody thinks that. The question is if it, even if they're investigating in corruption, how did that get predicated? Who reported it? I think we all know. I don't like to say his name because I don't really know him, but there's a certain name that Scanlon, I guess let's just say since it's out there now, but is possibly was brought into this case and found something that he considered to be corrupt. And the word is that he maybe went to Jackson, right, or Giannetti or something like that. Giannetti.
He went to Giannetti. Let's face it. You heard
and
Giannetti.
Giannetti's a former prosecutor, right?
You heard Giannetti today.
Yeah.
I never saw him so passionate. You heard him basically say, I didn't even have they wouldn't give me a police report.
Right.
All he had was the four corners of that affidavit, which was nothing.
Yeah.
And a day later, this guy walks into his office and says, hey, it's not an accident. That guy got killed. He got pummeled to death inside that house.
Yeah.
There's no discovery at this time. Nothing.
Right.
Right, Dave?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I was thinking too about that call just to go way back, Sean. Obviously, all these non-emergency line phone calls are subject to FOIA. They're all public record with the public record law in Mass. So I'll do what I can tomorrow to see if I can get a FOIA request into the Canton Police and seeing if we can at least see when a call was made. I think that'd be interesting to find out, and that'd be important to find out.
As you know, as a live citizen, you can walk into that town hall and request it from the select board.
Sean, have you got any more on Kerry Roberts' call at 5 a.m.?
I don't. All I know is she in fact reported, it was reported in one of the reports, she made an inquiry to local hospitals and she made a phone call to the Canton Police saying, did you have any encounters with John O'Keefe, a Boston police officer? He's missing.
So interesting.
To me, I mean, there's so much to find out there. What did she tell them? Did she say it was a Boston cop that's missing at 34 Fairview? Did they dispatch a car out there? But we've talked about this before. But yeah.
She was very, very close to John. She's
Yes.
not going to say, my buddy, John.
Yeah.
She's going to say, he's a Boston cop.
Exactly.
We can't find him.
Exactly.
And I know if I was a sitting Canton cop and I knew that, I'd be out searching for him.
Yep. Exactly. You're searching for a brother. And
That's it right there.
Yep.
He's not a John Doe.
Yep.
He's a John O'Keefe Boston cop.
That's why I think they would she definitely would have told them the name. And if she just was, her concern was to find him and didn't have any reason to suspect foul play, then she would have given the address too.
Listen, she knew John better than not better than Karen. She knew John would never, ever not come home to those kids.
Mhm.
It doesn't make sense. He would, come on. He stepped up for those kids. He would not come home.
Right. Right.
I can just see her saying, this is not right. Something happened to this guy.
So let's go back to the theory that John O'Keefe was going to that house not to participate in an after-hours party, but to straighten out a problem that maybe Albert came up to him and said, look, we got an issue, nephew, we got to straighten it out. So when he's in the car, does he give Karen any kind of an idea that there's a problem there? Do you think?
Well, if you're listening to the witnesses at the waterfall,
Yeah.
Chris Albert describes this was the biggest kumbaya there ever was. I call it the kisses and drinks. Everyone's kissing, hugging, drinking. Everyone's fine. There was no animosity at all, except for when the two Bryans get into this little fake tussle when John excuses himself and goes to the restroom. Other than that, everybody's happy. So I don't believe, listen, I know Boston Police Department is not a big department. I don't believe John knew Brian that well. I do know that he met him once, recently, very recently before he died. I know that for a fact. Now, could they have had conversation? What if Brian wanted to lure him back and say, hey, cops, Dave, you know how cops talk, right? Hey man, come on back. I got to show you some things or whatever, right? The kid's just meeting him, right? John's he's a detective at this time. He's in the sex crimes division, right? Brian, he's a sergeant in the fugitive. Whatever. It could have been anything innocent just to get him back to that house.
But the plan wasn't to kill him, though, right? I mean,
no, I don't think there was anything nefarious. And I don't even believe. Well, I don't believe Brian knew that Colin was there. We know. Listen, I don't even think John was putting two and two together about Colin and Brian Albert. I don't believe so. I can't answer for him, but I mean, I just don't see John, after a couple of hours of drinking, wanting to go back to settle a score. I don't buy that. No, he was going there maybe to have last call. Let's call it last call, right? Right, Dave? Last call. Right.
It's so true. Everything you're saying is so spot on, and I'm just thinking that if they had met, like you said, Boston's not a big department, but they also, Albert was a rock star in that department. He worked in a fugitive unit, and as you know, Sean, normally the rock stars and the guys who do the specialized stuff, they're not really. It's very cliquey. It's a very cliquey profession, and you kind of stay with the guys that you work with on a day-to-day basis. And of course, John was out on the street as a patrolman. So I could see how they could know of each other, met each other once or twice, but they didn't roll in the same circles.
No, but I don't know if, Dave, you know this, right? Of course, in the Boston Finest, you had Pat Rogers was part of that whole thing, right?
Yes,
John
of course.
And Pat Rogers was very close.
I did not know that.
Story? Oh,
I know Pat killed himself, but I didn't know.
Right. Okay. Well, guess what? The morning that Pat, or the afternoon that Pat killed himself, John was bringing Pat back to Canton to go to One Meadows for his sister and brother-in-law were having a party for one of either niece or nephew. John gets to the house where Pat Rogers is living. Here's the gunshot. Busts in the door, finds Patrick with a bullet hole to his head.
That's incredible to hear.
Isn't that amazing? Now,
this guy, wow, that's amazing.
8 years on the job. Nice kid. I mean, come on. So, like I said, I mean, I offer that theory.
Sure.
So I want to get to Dave in a moment because he had so much happen to him down. But before we switch, and I want to keep you on, Sean, too, so you can react to what you saw. Because we could stay on longer, but a lot of people probably want to head over to Turtles, so we'll probably try to wrap it up at 9.
Sure, exactly.
But is there anything else that might move the needle that you've discovered in the last few days, or something that you're working on that we can expect might move the needle a little bit more? Like, to me, that the taillight was big, but go ahead. Is there anything else you got going on?
Kevin, I can tell you right now, I'm getting calls. I'm getting a call right now on this phone. It never stops, okay? I got a call yesterday from a retired Canton cop. He'd been off the job since 2008. He was spotted. He was at the rally on Saturday, okay? And evidently on Sundays, he has, he goes to he has people over at some place he has somewhere in Canton. It's a ritual on Sundays. A current Canton police officer came to that encampment and went up to him, called him aside, and said, listen, are you with Karen Reed or are you with us? He said, what are you talking about? He says, I understand you were at the rally. And he takes out his phone and shows him a photo of himself, another two people at the rally. He says, of course I'm at the rally. Of course I believe in Karen Reed. He said, you guys ruined that investigation, quote unquote, to the Canton cop that's active. And they had words back and forth. You don't know, the one cop said, you don't know what really happened. He said, I know enough of what happened. He says, and I know right now you guys didn't do the right thing. And the kid goes, well, it's not me. Of course it's not you. But, to that cop, you know exactly what happened. You know exactly what didn't happen, but that's besides the point. But the parting shot was, there was a good cop that recently died. He was young, and his wake was that day. And because, think about this, Dave, because that retired cop of 35 years on that department went to that rally, allegedly the wife of the poor dead cop that just died told that Canton cop, tell that guy not to show his face because he's with the other side. The guy couldn't even go to the wake.
Sean, I'm so glad you told that story, because I was just thinking to ask it about, the attempt to kind of intimidate the other cop, because it's a perfect segue into Dave. But you got a lot to tell us today, but I want to start with, for a while, we were worried that you were arrested because you texted me that this guy, you described it as an investigative shirt. I don't even know I'm not even sure exactly how you put it, but that he was taking pictures of the crowd. So I said to you, well, get some video of him. And then all of a sudden I couldn't get in touch. I was like, shit, he must have picked him up. But so what did you see? Because that's similar to the intimidation stuff that you hear about that Sean's talking about. So
yeah, there's a couple guys there across the street at the Norfolk Registry of Deeds who I was trying to get in out of the rain. So I wanted to check them out because I had been watching them taking photos of the crowd all day. They've been taking pictures of license plates and picking people out of the crowd, taking pictures of them, taking a lot of pictures of Turtle Boy, of course, who's, the main object of, I'm sure they would absolutely love to take him down. So, so I, using the auspice of, I just wanted to get out of the rain, I kind of walked up behind next to them, sat down, and, I could see them on their cameras flipping through all the different pictures. They were talking amongst themselves, talking about, no, that's not her. She's the one in the hood and blah, blah, blah. So it looks like they were putting names to faces. So I have no idea what to make of that. But, I was there all day. It was nice to see the crowd behaving in an exceptional way. I mean, people were very respectful, and I was half expecting there to be, some, this is a very emotionally charged case. You have a young lady whose life hangs in the balance. You have a couple cops who are very well connected, who will undoubtedly die in federal prison if it goes the other way, and it goes the way that we think it'll go, which is back towards them, towards the guilty folks. So, I half expected it to be, maybe problematic, but man, I'll tell you, people were respectful and behaving great, and really, the outpouring of support for Karen Reed is just, I was waiting to find somebody who was pro-prosecution, Kevin. I couldn't find them. I was there for 6 hours. I just couldn't find anybody pro-prosecution. But as far as the getting pictures of who was filming and taking pictures of people, I tried like hell. Just the rain was so hard, and my phone just kept malfunctioning on me. I mean, at certain points, it was pouring so bad that people were just clearing off the streets and heading home. So, but just so people are aware.
Well, we can tell people that, look, at the next time there's the rally, the next hearing, Dave will be there. And if you want to send cops out there to take pictures, I think maybe it might even be related to Sean's story, where they're just trying to find other cops and friends of cops and retired cops and try to go up to them and say, "What are you doing? You're turning against us here."
Same,
Well,
yeah,
this time we're going to get the camera on you, because Dave's going to recognize you. And even if you send somebody different, Dave's in law enforcement. He's got an eye for it. He's going to recognize you, and he's going to get your picture. And we're going to put you up, and we're going to say, "What are you doing, dude? What are you out there trying to take pictures of people for like this?" I mean, this is disgusting. The two most disgusting part of this case, this whole case for me, that I've heard that really bother me, that I can't even debate, is Lally trying to explain to us or tell us that John's phone was moving after he was dead, and that somehow explains that somehow is a way of saying that the health app is that data is inaccurate. That's disgusting to me. And then hearing you guys hearing Dave say that there's someone out there taking pictures, it looks like he's in an semi-official person. That's just disturbing to me. These are people that are public officials. I mean,
it's not like they were hiding who they were either. It's just the emblem on their shirts was not something I recognized, and I'm pretty well versed in all the different emblems, and perhaps somebody in the comments who's from Dedham is something Metro, and I don't know if somebody out there from somebody's already commented and said Metro State Services investigation.
Some task force like that, right?
So the task force exists. There's a million task force that exist, and the general public knows nothing about them. So I mean, I understand. It's just be aware. Listen, you gotta act right and act respectful. Let things take their course. But you also have to know that there's obviously something so much bigger at play here, and you don't want to get swept up in that either. So,
right.
Don't
hey, Dave,
confront
real
them.
quick, I just wanted to ask you. I know you have your ear to the ground. What was Brian Albert famous for off duty? You ever hear those stories?
I can tell you what I've heard off duty. What he was famous for. I mean, saying that here, well, I mean, listen, he was known as a guy who could, he's the one that you want next to you in a bar fight, that's for sure.
Right.
And he'll put his hands on people at a moment's notice, and he was a well-known, again, I've never met the guy, but this is just, you hear a story once, Sean, and you can go, that's just hearsay, that's bullshit. But when you hear a story 5, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, then a narrative starts to begin. It starts in your mind,
And just going back to the day that the cops came to his house for John O'Keefe, they knew that. They knew he was a cop beater. He's had several fights with cops at bars, which I just don't get. But if you have a dead cop who looks like he was beaten up, you have the guy inside the house who's a known cop beater.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah.
What are they doing? What are they doing?
I've heard some stories relayed back to me of that. He's sucker punched more than a few
law enforcement,
work associates, law enforcement officers,
right.
More than a few. So when you know that you're coming into the house, you look at Karen Reed, who I was able to see today, 2 feet in front of me, a couple different times. I mean, she's a very petite woman, very petite, and you look at the size of John, and then Albert's, his reputation, which is obviously well known. If you're saying it, and I've heard it, and you've obviously heard it, so it's more than just rumor. So,
Dave, I had 2 Canton cops look me in the eye and said exactly what you said, and they backed it up even more. They said, if I was ever at a bar, he walked in, I'd walk out, or vice versa.
Yeah.
If I was going into the bar and I saw him, I'd walk out.
Trouble.
Those are from Canton cops. 2 of them.
He's trouble is one thing I've heard over and over again is he's just trouble. He's the friend you bring out when you're looking to tie a few on and have a long night, and that's not necessarily a good thing for a good behavioral trait for a law enforcement officer, certainly.
But it clearly showed If he did it to guys at a bar, what would he do to a guy in his own residence?
After a full day
Right.
of drinking,
Right.
after a long day of drinking, and
drinking.
everybody's been
You know,
drinking, and yeah,
And who's
know.
allegedly blowing the whistle on his nephew, who they're all trying to circle the wagons
Exactly.
around, you know?
You know, the sad thing is one of the cops that actually entered the residence could have been the hero, because he had motive to actually investigate that house. He had motive against Albert. And Dave, we can, Kevin, we could talk about that later because it's just too many stories. But that particular cop that went in that house had motive because he had an incident with him. And the incident was with his own wife, because that's the other part, Dave, right? Not only would he punch you out, he'd go after your wife or your girlfriend or both. And yes, all both at Canton, because they all had girlfriends and wives.
Right. And you know what else I've heard? And again, I don't want to turn this into a fucking a sewing circle. Is that some of these guys were okay with that? So they're all fucking each other and they all know about it, you know? So, I mean, you get a lot.
Hey,
of
I heard that too.
here.
I heard it. Oh, God.
we don't do that stuff up in the Merrimack Valley.
Hearing too much.
Yeah.
Well, I do. I want to actually remind people too, or just kind of explain to them. Now, the other night I asked Sean in our interview. This was not about the Karen Reed case, but this is about. I want to get more into his life story because he spent 7 years as a DC cop and then 25 years as a DEA
Well,
agent.
not a DC cop. I was in the DC area. I was
it's Capitol
US
Police,
Capitol
that's right.
in Arlington County
Okay.
Police Department. Yeah.
In the DC area, and 25 years in the DEA, decorated agent. And so I asked him, you know, this was not about the Karen Reed case. I wanted to start going into his background because he's going to have so many great stories, and we're going to do a regular series on this. And I think we're going to try to maybe even transcribe it into a book form, or at least I'll send him the notes. So I asked him, what was that moment in your career? And everybody has it in every career, but I would think in a career like that where you're just so frustrated or so upset that you say, you question whether or not you question your career choice. I know Dave's had those moments. He's had a tough go. You know, he's had to deal with some tough situations in his career. So when I asked him that, he thought about it and he said, you know, it's the Karen Reed case, which is like, no, I mean in your career, but it bothers him. It's not like he's getting on this because he's excited to take on. It bothers him because he spent his life in law enforcement, and he's looking at this case and seeing the way these guys behaved, both in Canton and in the state police, and it really frustrates him. And then the other thing I can say about Sean is when we talk every couple of days for an hour or two going over this stuff, he's not one-sided. Like it's all got to be this way. He's not trying to prove that Karen Reed is innocent. You know, he's trying to go over the evidence, and we go back and forth. We take a certain piece of evidence and kind of go at it from every different angle to see what the possibilities are. So he's not trying to give you biased information there. He's definitely not like that. But I don't know. I'm out of questions.
Well, in this case, I will say that although I know nobody involved, I feel like at this point I'm incredibly biased because it's just absolutely laughable that we're even this far. And unfortunately, you know, last night you asked me 24 hours ago, I would have told you that this will never go to trial because they'll just get laughed out. But hearing this judge today, I have totally flipped my thought process. This will absolutely go to trial, and it'll be a laugher, and that won't change because the evidence is the evidence. But this thing is going to trial, so we're going to be live again for day one and then verdict day and all that. So you know,
And
It's going to be an
Dave,
incredible trial.
Dave, real quick, can you see those cops surviving a cross-examination from Yannetti,
No.
the way he was today, or Jackson? How can they do it?
We said this the other night. I said that to Kevin the other night. I said, you know, when we were arguing back and forth, you know, I just said, you know, forget everything else. Explain to me how this goes past these first responding officers going through a cross-examination from a great attorney, like Karen Reed has, and nobody will be able to answer that because it's not possible. I mean, it's going to be a laugher. It's literally going to be, if we lived in any kind of a real country, this wouldn't even be happening. You know, of course we don't. So, I mean, well, Sean, you do. You're down in Florida, so you live in a real country. But up here, it's
No,
you know,
it's embarrassing. It's not
It is.
it's not even. It's a myth. This whole thing's a myth, but it's going to get real. It's going to get very real when that trial happens.
Yep.
I feel bad. I do. No, I don't. Do I feel bad for the cops? I feel bad for the Canton cops because the state police are going to point the fingers at them. You didn't
Yep.
find the red chunks?
Yep.
Come on.
Everything's going to be like this. That's going to be this
Right.
trial.
And Dave, like I said, I told Kevin today, this was blue on blue from day one. You had an officer on the ground, you had an officer inside. Now it's really blue on blue. Now you're going to have the state troopers against the Canton cops.
So, Sean, can I ask you?
Sure.
This is a question I'm asking everybody. I asked a lot of people today from Canton. I ask everyone who I come in contact with. If I put a gun to your head, how does this end? How does this end? Who goes to jail? Who gets involved? What happens?
Well, I can tell you right now, you know and I know Karen Reed is never going to be found guilty.
Absolutely not. That's for sure.
And if the FBI, who needs a huge, huge jolt in the arm right now, they can come out as huge heroes and do the roundup. You know Albert's going. If they're doing the right thing, what are the FBI noted for? Right?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So you got Albert, because they got to talk, right? Albert, you got Higgins, you got Jen McCabe, you got Matt McCabe. You have to have some kind of police officers. I mean, I told Kevin the other day, in the academy, misfeasance, malfeasance, right? Non-feasance. They hit the trifecta.
It's all
They did it all.
Yeah.
They did it all, right? You remember for the academy, they hit it all. Not just one. They hit every one of those feasances. And and here's the thing. And I did a 17-point bullet to Chief Rafferty. And the last bullet was this. Have you counseled your officers about Brady violations and the need to provide exculpatory evidence? That's the problem.
Right.
Back in that station, what they're talking about. There's exculpatory evidence all over this case.
Okay, we're going to have to wrap things up.
Okay.
It's been a really long day. I just, I want to say
Sean.
to everybody out there who's going to be
Dave.
transferring to Turtle Boy and who's watching this or might watch it later, obviously, thank you very much for these guys and everything that they do. Dave is investigating and has been investigating for about 8 years, disappearances and abductions, child abductions in the 70s. Are they connected? There are people out there that still have information. Please get anything you think might be useful information. Get it to us. Contact Dave, contact me, and I'll send you to Dave, however you got to do it. You guys have information, and it might have to seem like a huge clue to you, but some small thing when pieced together with something else could be big. So please reach out to us. We're starting our documentary series. The filming starts Tuesday if anybody wants to join us. Same thing with Sean. There are a lot of, most of the cops in this state are good cops. All right. And some people are just in the background, not sure what to do in this case. But there are people that want to come forward and they really only kind of want to do it to another cop. And I think now maybe Sean is kind of front and center as a retired cop, he can afford to do it career wise. So reach out to Sean, whether it's through us. He can be found on Facebook. He's got a Justice for John Reed, right? What's the name of the Facebook?
Justice for John O'Keefe and Karen Reed.
Oh God, sorry.
Right. Or Canton Confidential. But Dave, real quick, where was I going with this? It lost because I got lost on this. But anyways, I'll get back to it.
All right, we'll be on real soon, guys. And I know everybody wants to go over to Turtle Boy, and we're not officially connected to Turtle Boy. And as Dave knows, I go sometimes in different directions from Turtle Boy, but we respect his work, and we're glad he's doing what he's doing. And today, that goes a long way towards bringing justice towards for Karen Reed. So go check it out. What is it, Turtle Boy? What's his name of his channel?
Turtle Boy Live.
Yeah, if you look up Turtle Boy Live, you'll find it because there'll be thousands of people watching it right now. But guys, I love you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. Great meeting you there, Dave.
Great meeting you, pal.
Is this the first time you guys met? I'm sorry. I'm an asshole. I didn't introduce you. I just assumed you guys were on the show with me before. But all right, guys.
Sean, I'd love to get connected with you offline, man.
Absolutely.
I'll talk to you soon, real soon.
Yeah, Dave, Kevin has my number.
I got his number. Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you. You guys, I'll call you right now if you want. All right, see you guys.
Bye-bye.
See ya.